In the past several months, a number of objects around my home have spent time talking to me. Um, and recently, a cookie jar in my kitchen wanted to talk. And it was a Campbell soup can. Design of the cookie jar was that of a Campbell soup can. But on the top of the can was two figurines, one of a little boy and a little girl, Bobby and Dolly. And they informed me about their relationship to the Campbell Soup Company and advertisements a century ago. And while they informed me about who they were and what they were up to, they wanted to understand me and my love for cooking. I mean, I love to cook, but most of all, I love baking. And they kept on pressing me, but why? Why is baking so important to you? And I told them that when I wasn't even a teenager. I must have been 10 or 11 years old. And my mother had had a radical mastectomy, was crippled up with arthritis, and was in early stages of lupus. And from that time on until she died, like 2 decades later, there wasn't much going on in the house except for, just enough to feed us, to get us going and carry on, because she was so laid up. And there was no effort, primarily because she couldn't do it, to give us what young kids would call, treats. And so I took it my responsibility to learn how to bake. I mean, she couldn't even teach me how to bake because she was so much in pain. So I taught myself. And I love baking pies, and I love baking cookies. And I told Dolly and Bobby kind of personally why I like it, because I couldn't get those treats growing up, and as a little kid or preteen, I liked pies and cookies. And prior to my mother getting really sick, she baked all the time. So I had experience of all the cookies and pies and things like that prior to her getting sick, and then they were dropped from the menu. And that's why I wanted to replace it with my cooking and baking. And Dolly and Bobby kept on pushing, but they said, but we understand that you wanted it, but with your children and your grandchildren, you taught them how to bake things. But why? Why was that? And I tried to, part of it was that I guess I was reliving my childhood and vicariously helping them to enjoy what I enjoyed doing. And Bobby and Dolly just kept on pushing. Okay, we understand that, but why? But why are you so concerned about little kids and they're having treats? Anybody that's read any of my articles on any kind of basis on my webpage for years knows that I love traveling, and I love going overseas, and especially going to places where most Americans have never been, or very few have been. And almost 2 years ago, I came back from Myanmar, which used to be called Burma. And it's still a military dictatorship. But if you go to my webpage and look at pictures that I took while in Myanmar, I took a lot of pictures of pagodas and But I noticed when I was putting them together for my webpage that there was a lot of little children. And I think that in some way I kind of vicariously relived my childhood in their childhood in Myanmar. I was not in a military dictatorship in Mount Lebanon, Pennsylvania, and I wasn't in abject poverty. But I couldn't, because of my mother's illness, I wasn't able to enjoy the treats of life, cookies and pies and things. And it's interesting to me how much my childhood, when I went to Myanmar, kind of linked up. And there were kids there that I wish I could have in my home, and I teach them how to cook, just to give a little kid the opportunity to experience kind of some of the niceties of life for a small child, cookies and cakes and pies. So that's my story about why I like baking. But you, as an adult, ought to be able to link up with that. Children always want to do new things and try things and experiment things, but as they grow older, they get tired of them and they kind of get laid back and don't enjoy some of the nicety of life. And what this article is about is how we can become involved, especially with young children, and giving them some of the nice things of life so they can go on and carry on that experience to the next generation. I appreciate your listening and watching this video and reading this article. I would more appreciate if you would get involved in helping young children here and abroad. In the meantime, you take care.